Well, it happened. Apple held its annual shareholder meeting this week, and at that shareholder meeting, the shareholders of Apple overwhelmingly, by something like 90+%, 97%, according to some numbers, voted to continue Apple's illegal DEI hiring practices. So, at least for the time being, Apple's going to continue flagrantly breaking the law and risk a huge monetary loss for all their shareholders. You may remember earlier this year, back in January, Apple released a big statement encouraging all of their shareholders, please, begging them, let us continue being racist, sexist bigots in our hiring. Please, please allow us to do this. This was in response to a proposal, a shareholder proposal, specifically shareholder proposal number 6, that requested Apple to cease all DEI efforts, meaning to stop hiring people based on the color of their skin or their stated gender and such. Which, of course, if anyone's been following this, you know that companies right and left and the United States government are trying desperately to shut down all of these crazy discriminatory and highly illegal practices, including executive orders from the president, mass changes in policies across the federal and state governments. And we're seeing that trickle down. I mean, we're seeing multiple lawsuits happening right now that have a really good chance at success against companies like IBM and Red Hat because of their over-the-top racist and sexist DEI hiring practices. And some companies are looking at that and going, maybe I don't want to get sued into oblivion. Maybe I'm not gonna do that today. Like Meta, for all the things I could criticize Meta for. I'm not a big Facebook and Zuckerberg fan, but even they had to stop and say, so we could keep being bigoted DEI pushers and get sued to the point where we lose our trousers. Or we could just stop doing all this crazy DEI stuff and be really successful and go swimming in our Scrooge McDuck money vault bin, right? I mean, that's the decision they had to make. And Meta and Mark Zuckerberg, God bless them, they looked at it and said, I'd prefer to keep my my money bin for swimming. I don't really blame them. But the Apple board came out and said, please let us continue being racist and sexist. Please allow us to continue to be bigots, because it's so important that we discriminate against people that we're willing to risk the entire future of the company and put just weird pressures on all of our employees and make all of our employees sad, or at least a good chunk of them, in order to do it. Like, that's how committed they were. And what's amazing to me in this is that the shareholders agreed. According to the AP, something like 98 something percent of all of the shareholders all of the outstanding shares voted to keep the DEI efforts. Only 1.7% of shareholders, according to Fox Business News, voted to stop the DEI efforts. 1.7%. There's only a little less than 2% of Apple shareholders who thought, you know what, I would like this company to exist in a few years. How crazy is that? Now, after the vote came out, President Donald Trump spoke out about it. It doesn't happen a whole lot that you get presidents and whatnot speaking out about tech companies, so I'm going to quote it here. He went over to Truth Social and posted the following: Apple should get rid of DEI rules, not just make adjustments to them. DEI was a hoax that has been very bad for our country. DEI is gone. 3 exclamation points. And it was done all in caps, which just is kind of what he normally does now. To start with, Mr. President, caps lock key. Turn that off. You need someone to tell you that the caps lock key is on. I appreciate that when that's on, it's all bold and everything like that. But come on, man. we gotta respect grammatical rules here. But that aside, I agree with the president here. Apple should get rid of their DEI rules, but that is not looking likely. According to statements during the shareholder meeting, Apple is not going to be getting rid of their DEI efforts. In fact, their apple.com/diversity page is still up with all sorts of DEI mumbo jumbo on it. That said, Apple CEO Tim Cook did come out and make a statement during this that said the following. Apple may need to make DEI changes in the future as the legal landscape evolves. Still, Apple will always have a culture of belonging. End quote. Okay, now what could he be talking about there with the legal landscape evolving? Could it be several of the other companies in his same industry getting sued through the nostrils? Maybe. Could it be the executive orders coming down from the federal government? You can't, as a company, have these DEI programs in place according to the way everything is laid out right now. Policies, laws, executive orders, all of it. You cannot, as a company, excuse me. You cannot, I'm all excited. You cannot do work with federal agencies, with government agencies in the United States, if your company engages in DEI practices, right? That is verboten. That is forbidden. You cannot do that. So the question is, does Apple do work with federal agencies? The answer is yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Maybe not as much as, say, Microsoft does. Microsoft does a lot. Maybe not as much as IBM does. IBM does a ton. But Apple does do a significant, brisk business relating to the United States, states and federal governments, and several federal agencies. So they've now got a problem. They have to find a way to change their DEI programs to make them compliant with the federal laws in order to continue in the long term doing business with the federal government. Right now, as it stands, Apple would not be in compliance with federal laws. They're just not, right? So they're going to have to find a way to change. And I think that's what prompted Tim Cook to come out and say that Apple may need to make DEI changes in the future as the legal landscape evolves. Well, the legal landscape has evolved. And the Apple is going to need to make changes, but I think Tim Cook is coming out there and making these statements in order to kind of get people ready for the changes that Apple is going to have to make. I think it's fascinating that Apple pushed their board of Apple. It was encouraging the shareholders to reject getting rid of DEI, to allow Apple to continue to use DEI, because what the shareholders were presenting them with was an opportunity. It was basically a get out of jail free card. If Apple went along with a vote to abolish DEI within Apple, Apple could then honestly say, you know what, we love DEI, but the shareholders voted to get rid of it, and we're beholden to shareholders, so we've got to get rid of it. Which would allow them to save face with the crazy blue-haired they-thems who really want the DEI, and it would allow them to be instantly in compliance with the federal law and allow them to continue to do business with government agencies. It would have been a win-win. But Apple shot themselves in the foot here by basically forcing their shareholders, which, I mean, there wasn't really much of a choice between all of the shares that are held by the board and all of the shares controlled by Apple. Once you combine that together, Apple didn't really have to convince that many people to vote in favor of keeping DEI practices in order to make it pass. That's just the makeup of the shareholding at Apple. But they missed an opportunity. They missed an opportunity to fix all of this for them, to make everything super easy for them, and get out of jail free card for the people who are true diehard DEI believers, which tells you that Apple's board believes in racism, sexism, and general bigotry so much, that's such an important part of who they are, that they're willing to risk it all. They're putting everything on put it all on black and rolling the dice, and they're willing to risk everything at the company in order for a slim chance at being bigoted just a little bit longer. That's crazy to me. That's crazy. Why would you do that to your company? It's insane. It's insane. We'll continue following this because undoubtedly it will evolve as time goes forward. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers who make everything I do at the Lunduke Journal possible. Go to lunduke.com. You can find links there to listen to the audio podcast, to watch the shows on Locals, Rumble, X, YouTube, Facebook, Patreon. You can even download DRM free MP4 files, which is pretty darn fancy. You can support the work of the Lunduke Journal on Substack, Patreon, Locals, Itch, wherever. There's links to a special subscriber-only forum where all the cool kids hang out. It's all up there at lunduke.com. You love lunduke.com. Everyone loves lunduke.com. The best single-page, CSS-free website left on the internet. It's glorious. It renders great on old school web browsers. It's fantastic. It's just a couple of HTML tables, just like websites were supposed to be. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.